How do you know when you're making progress? And this is so important that we understand this, because sometimes the indicators that you're succeeding are going to be the manifestation of activists. But what's particularly strange is we, in our circles, we think of activists as people that are out there on the streets, and politicians as people that are in here feeling the pressure from the activists. On the left, with the new Democratic Party, the activists like Stacey Abrams and company in Georgia, they actually get elected to office. Therefore, being activists, you can expect theatrics because activists do street theater in order to capture news cycles. I want you to see how State Representative Park Cannon was responding to what's taking place in Georgia right now.
Are you serious?
No, you are not. Represent.
She's not under arrest.
For what? Under arrest for what? For trying to see something that our governor is doing? Our governor is signing a bill that affects all Georgians, and you're going to arrest an elected representative. Why are you arresting her? Tell us now. Why are you arresting her? Cite it. Give me a reason why you are arresting her. Give me a reason why you are arresting her.
So you catch that? That's what you call, theater. You got one person who is well scripted on why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? And then you got another person who is screaming like a victim of cruelty. And it's all meant for the optics of manipulating the audience. And I think it's the manipulation that is going to reach a backlash. I think that the American people, certainly 75 to 80 million that voted for Trump, already feel vilified. I mean, we're supposedly insurgents that are dangerous people because we are not submitted to the totalitarian state. Yep. But when they act like that, I think that it actually doesn't help them, and I think we need to decode it and understand that's the final stage of exasperation on the left when you start to legislate in the direction of a fair and unmanipulated election.
Yeah. And I just want to add, too, that she was charged with felony obstruction of law enforcement, punishable with 1 to 5 years in prison, and disrupting a session of the General Assembly. So it's not like the narrative that they're spinning in that video that she's just trying to knock on the door. I mean, she was being disruptive. Any cop that's worth their weight and, would say, hey, ma'am, could you please stop? So clearly she's resisting. She's not complying. And then therefore she's being escorted out, which is not what you're seeing in this video. And it's just not being reported in mainstream media.
Yeah,
but I just want to throw that in.
And by the way, just to be congruent, on January 6th, the whole outrage of the Capitol was that people were trying to get into rooms they weren't supposed to be in, and they weren't respecting the police that were trying to keep them out. Yep. Isn't that what the whole deal is? That you're not supposed to be invading and threatening and rebelling against the police in a public facility that's a government facility? Hello? Unless, of course, you're an activist Democrat, in which case you're a victim. So here's what I want you to take a look at now. The Governor Kemp response. Remember, he's in a PR campaign right now to rehabilitate himself from the damage of the election screw-up in Georgia. So he's trying to right that so that he can get reelected. He had presidential aspirations in the future, and boy, did he get on the wrong side of Donald Trump, and might I add 75 million of the populist movement. But he did write a tweet response. Mercedes, do you want to share what's the response here?
Yeah, definitely. He responded to the president saying SB 202 expands voting access, streamlines procedures, and ensures election integrity. There's nothing, quote, Jim Crow about requiring voter ID to submit an absentee ballot. Every Georgia voter must already do so when voting in person. And so, Lance, this phrase is Jim Crow. It's like it keeps coming up. Like if this was a drinking game, it would be, from my college days, it would be something like we need like bingo cards or something like that, because it just keeps coming up like Russian dossier. We're just going to hear it more and more. We got to get a better response to this idea of Jim Crow and, making really poking fun at it, in my opinion.
Well, and because what we have to do is we have to have we have to create, you're absolutely right, because the left works on propaganda, they try to link, and every 2 to 4 years they do this. Their favorite game is to label Republicans as
Racist, homophobic, bigots, misogynist.
and all homophobic.
The list
or
goes
bigots.
on.
And that's how that list goes. And I do believe you're right. I think that there has to be a pushback, but that involves a larger subject, which we have brilliant black scholars and economists have written on. And we'll probably have to do a segment on it, which has to do with the manipulation of white America through white shaming and white guilt over the Civil War, which ironically was Republicans attacking the Democrat South for slavery, and the Democrats are continuing to practice rebellion and anarchy in America. The fact is, Jim Crow was the Democrat practice in the South, not the Republican practice in the North. It was Democrats in the South. And so every time you hear Jim Crow, they want to make it sound like there's those Republicans, and it's those white right-wing extremists. In reality, it's Democrats. Party politics.
Yep.
And so now they're using it to make it sound like you are the Jim Crow. So,
Yep.
But here's what I want you to catch: the thing that's happening in government is a constant manipulation. And while I want to get to that gun situation because it's another example of how they manipulate words, they were all about white supremacist shootings in Atlanta and in Boulder, Colorado, until they found out that the name of the guy in Colorado was Ahmed Al-Sidi, and he's a Syrian, and that he's attending a mosque. And then they found out, wait a second, this screwed up their whole narrative. But maybe we should go there now because I want to cover this incident because this is hot in the news cycle, which is the left wants to get your guns. And why do they want to do that? Because every totalitarian state wants to disarm the citizenship so that they can exert power. And trust me, we don't trust them. And so this is going to be a real issue. And they're losing our trust every day that they try to make us sound like we're dangerous. So let's take a look at what's happening right now. I want Dinesh D'Souza to sound in on this because he really makes an articulate point of observing how the left works. They tried to put him in prison. They tried to destroy this man in the Obama-Holder administration. So he, like Tucker Carlson with Antifa, showing up at his house twice. These bold conservative thinkers are actually I would say the oracles we need to be paying attention to. Okay, Dinesh, take it.
So here's their narrative. Whenever a Muslim guy is involved in a shooting, the left knows only two words to say. One is white supremacy, and the other is Islamophobia. So it's got to be white supremacy that did it, and it's got to be Islamophobia that is the problem. But in this case, we have a problem. Why? Because the shooter was Muslim and seemingly a radical Muslim. I'm going to go into that. And the victims, all 10 of them, were white. Now let's think about it. In the Atlanta shooting, 6 of the 8 victims were Asian American. And the immediate implication was hate crime. This is a hate crime against Asian Americans, even though the shooter in that case, a white guy, said, I'm a sex addict. I hate these massage parlors. I'm out to get rid of them. And so his motive appeared to be some kind of psychotic response to a sex addiction, nothing to do with race. And not all the victims were Asian American. In this case, Boulder, all the victims are white, and yet no mention of any animus toward whites that might have motivated this attack. Suddenly, the hate crime language has completely disappeared. Now let's turn to the shooter himself. He's Ahmad Aliwi al-Issa. Interestingly, when the Boulder police chief was talking about him, she kind of compressed his name. She didn't say his full name. Listen.
The suspect was taken into custody at 3:28 p.m. He was transported to the hospital for treatment, now in stable condition. This suspect has been identified as Ahmad Alyssa, 21 of Arvada.
So you notice the very... I'm not saying this is a woman who's trying to put out a false narrative, not at all. But I'm saying there's that natural trepidation. It's kind of the trepidation you see when even a woman who's raped is scared to say the guy who did it is black. Or in this case, the guy has a Muslim name, draw your own conclusions. No, she sort of had to edit his name out of that natural fear that she'd somehow be called a racist. So here you've got a head cop in the wake of a mass shooting, and what she's scared about is what they will say about her. She's an Islamophobe. And sure enough, almost comically, there are efforts to blame this on Islamophobia.
And so the efforts are to try to make it Islamophobia. So Ahmed's brother said, the only thing I can think of is when he was in school, he was made fun of by other kids. And so the narrative is he's a victim of Islamophobia. But I want to point something out that nobody said yet. In all of the years that Donald Trump was president of the United States, and listen, we've got 2 best-selling books on this subject. Donald Trump was a guardian role for the United States. There wasn't a single terror incident, a Muslim terror incident, not a single radical Islam terror incident. We already had one. Put that down. The media won't tell you that. But what was he listening to? Ahmed was reading The Intercept, the New York Post. He was reading the Washington Post and the New York Times. So his sources were left-wing radicalizing, and it only fed his anger and his frustration. So where I want you to go right now is stay in this conversation. Mercedes and I are able to continue this every day, covering these events that are unfolding. I'm at LanceWallnau. You can catch me over there on YouTube and on Facebook. Mercedes, your address?
Follow Sadie's. So follow Sadie's. And for Lance, listen, we didn't get a lot of stuff today. So come follow us on social media. We'll give you the stuff we didn't even get to today.
We got so many things. I look forward to talking to you later.
LanceWallnau has just released his latest book, God's Chaos Code.
You need to know the code. You need to know what's happening right now. There is a code in the chaos. There's a purpose in the shaking. Once you see this, it's going to give stability and strength to you. God is literally raising up an awakening generation right now. It's hidden in the code.
You need to know the code. Order God's Chaos Code now at godschaoscode.com.